Hi, everyone, and welcome to Birth and Baby Talk. I'm Leanne Palmerston from Hamilton Family Doulas, and I'm your host today. Today, we are talking about switch feeding. So, switch feeding is when you switch between feeding with a bottle and feeding at the chest or the breast. So, if you're breastfeeding, but you wish maybe that you or a partner could use a bottle occasionally, or perhaps you're breastfeeding, but you're getting off to a bit of a rocky start and you're working on things to improve your breastfeeding success, but you do need to use a bottle, either at your choice or at the recommendation of a doctor or a midwife or a lactation consultant in order to get a little extra food into your baby's belly to ensure that they're getting a full feed while you work maybe on increasing your supply. You work on fixing sometimes a tongue tie or another a lip tie, or perhaps your baby has an issue with low blood sugar, or they have an issue with low tone, muscle tone, meaning that they're not eating as vigorously. Maybe they were an early baby and they're not a great breastfeeder yet. All of these things and more could be reasons why you wish to introduce and maintain using a bottle in your feeding relationship with your baby. And that's great. Normally, the rule of thumb has always been to wait to introduce rubber nipples. So that would mean a pacifier or a bottle nipple to babies who are breastfeeding. Wait until breastfeeding is well established. And what they mean by this, they're implying that introducing the bottle to the baby, and our baby today is baby Bob, who's going to be helping us learn about feeding. I'm just going to keep him here on my shoulder. So they want to make sure that Bob is getting as much food as he can at the breast before introducing a bottle or an otherwise artificial nipple, so that these things don't interfere with his breastfeeding. And it was always thought that that it was the sort of the fake nipple, the rubber nipple itself, or the silicone nipple. These days, we don't really use rubbers with baby. It was thought that it was the artificial nipple itself that was causing the problem, or that it would be too easy for a parent to introduce that nipple, which the baby could suck on as long as the baby wanted without interfering with their parents' sense of, like, if you've ever breastfed a baby before, those of you who've done that will know there's sometimes when a baby has been feeding for a while, it can feel like you want to stop because, just that session, because you're feeling like, oh gosh, I want to do other things. I don't want to sit here all day. I want this baby to eat efficiently and quickly and be done and move on to the next thing. And it was worried that bottles would interfere with the breastfeeding, make it far too easy for the parent to rely on those artificial nipples, and then the breastfeeding would not work out well. So if you're a parent who really does want your breastfeeding experience to work well, who wants and is committed to trying to overcome those challenges, but you do want to have the option of using a bottle whenever you'd like, whenever you need to, then this is really important information. So I'm about to show you a feeding method that we use here at Hamilton Family Doulas, at Toronto Family Doulas, and at Family Doulas of Ottawa, that we all use to feed babies so that when we're using a bottle, that the baby will happily go back to the breast with no issues. But before I do that, I want to explain something. So usually we used to call this nipple confusion, where a baby would take a bottle, and then when we bring them back to the breast for a breastfeeding session, the baby would get really upset, right? And we said, oh, it's a nipple confusion. But it's not nipple confusion. What we know now, it is flow confusion. So breast milk coming out of the breast takes a moment to get started. There may be some available, but generally the baby has to work hard to remove the milk. And then once the milk flow starts after about 10 to 20 seconds, then the baby needs to actively be drawing milk out, working with the flow of the breast milk itself. So breast milk tends to flow slower and require work to remove it from the mother's body into the baby's body. Now, when we work with a bottle, if you were to just turn the bottle upside down, the force of gravity would kind of push on the milk and it will start dripping out. And if you give any pressure whatsoever to a bottle nipple, that milk will just easily squirt out, and quite a heavy flow can come out, especially if the nipple you're using is maybe a size 1 or a size 2 nipple, right? That means the hole at the tip of the nipple where the milk comes out is bigger. I always like to try to use a newborn nipple or only size 1 if the baby is a little bit older, but never graduate upwards, because what I want to do is I want to maintain for a baby whose most of their meals are breastfed meals. Oh, I guess that even if half of their meals are breastfed meals, we want to maintain as close as possible an experience to the breastfeeding experience when we use a bottle, right? So we want to mimic as many things as possible that are going on with breastfeeding, with this method of feeding. And one of those things is that the little holes in the end of a human nipple where the milk is coming out, they don't get bigger and wider. They're within the first week or so, it does move from really slow moving milk to a little faster moving milk. However, the flow doesn't necessarily increase over time based on the baby's age. They're just able to more and more effectively remove milk as they're eating. So the first rule is always going to be that when you get bottle nipples, always keep them at the smallest size that you can in terms of the size of the hole at the end. And then, we want to maintain as much as close to the breastfeeding experience as possible, because babies who drink in a traditional way. So when let's say we think of Bob here having a bottle, we often take the bottle. We have Bob reclining in my arm, nice and cozy and comfy. And then I'm going to turn the bottle upside down, and I'm going to sort of push it into Bob's mouth. He's going to start drinking, and he's going to start gulping that milk back. And if he decides, oh, I need a break for a few minutes, which is very common, or if he decides, oh boy, I think I'm done, I don't want to eat anymore, I'm probably going to try to tickle his mouth a little bit and see if I can't get him to finish off the contents of the bottle. Now, what's going on when we do this is very differently than breastfeeding. What we're doing is we're kind of force feeding Bob in a way. I like to use the example of doing like a shotgunning a beer. If you ever did that when you were younger, when you do that, what you would have noticed is that as soon as you create like the flow of the beer by opening it at one end, and then there's a hole where air can enter at the top. As soon as that happens, then gravity just kind of pushes that liquid into you, right? So you have to drink the beer. You have to drink it continuously. You can't stop for breaks. You can't stop because your mouth is full and you need to finish swallowing or anything. You just have to keep going and keep going and keep going till it's done. And feeding with a bottle is a little bit like that. And what you'll also notice is that, like, that's a lot of liquid to go in really fast. It goes in way faster than your sensation of being satiated. We call that satiety, that sense of being full. It takes a little time to catch up to how fast a baby eats with a bottle. So a lot of times babies decide they're full when they feel like their tummies are really uncomfortably swollen. And by that time, they've already gotten sometimes twice as much food as they would normally have wanted to take. Now, when studies say that breastfed babies have less incidences of obesity, I strongly suspect it's not so much that breast milk is magical, but that the slower method of eating at the breast allows the baby to know when they're finished eating, know when they're not hungry anymore, and stop eating. Because if you've ever breastfed a baby, you know when they're done, they are done. They just will stop. You can't sort of overfeed a breastfed baby because they just won't have it. They will clamp their mouths together really tight. And they'll push any nipple out of their mouth to prevent it from getting in there. And so a breastfed baby who goes, "Oh, I'm full," is finished. And we want to help babies who are eating with a bottle learn that same sensation so that as they move through life, they know when they're not hungry anymore. They will only eat as much food as their body needs them to eat and as they desire to eat. And when they're no longer feeling like they're hungry, they will just stop eating. That's a really, really good skill to learn. And we start teaching that right at the very beginning of life through how we feed babies. So you want to learn how to do it? Let's do it. Okay. So again, all of these things are going to mimic how we feed babies at the breast. And I'm just going to lower this camera here so you can see baby. Bob is sitting here. Oh, look at Bob loves the camera. Bob is sitting on my lap here, and I'm going to hold Bob gingerly around the back of the neck here, sort of supporting him at the back of the neck and the jaw. I'm also usually going to like hook a finger under his underarm. So I'm going to sit him here. He's not going to be able to sit up well, but when I support him, he'll be fine. He may look like he's hanging funny a little bit like a sad marionette, but he's not in any pain. You're not mistreating your baby at all when you do this. So what we're going to have is we're going to start this way. We're going to take our bottle. We're going to imagine it's full of milk. This currently is not, but we're going to imagine this is full of milk. So we're going to take our little bottle, and what we're going to do is we're going to tip it on its side, but we're not going to tip it upside down, and we're not even going to tip it flat right now. We're just going to tip it this way so that there's no milk in the nipple. And what we're going to do is we're going to tickle Bob's lip with the nipple. And usually if you tickle a baby's lip, they're going to try to grab for the whatever it is that's tickling their lip, because they're hoping it's a nipple. They're hoping there's food there. They're hoping that they can latch on and start sucking, which for them is a very pleasurable experience. So we're going to tickle Bob's lip, and then when he tries to grab for the nipple, we're going to let him grab it, but instead of pushing it into his mouth to sort of get a really solid connection, what we're going to do is you can see the bottle is sort of tilted downwards ever so slightly. So there's still no milk in this nipple. We're just going to let Bob suck a couple of times to pull that nipple firmly into his mouth. So there he goes. He's pulled it firmly into his mouth. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to tip the bottle up sort of even. And what this will do is if there was milk here, it would just sort of fill up half of the nipple. We don't want to completely fill the nipple because frankly, we don't want to make this easy on Bob. We want Bob to work a little bit hard while he does this. So Bob's going to suck, suck, suck. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, oh my gosh, he's just going to suck in all that air. And then he's going to be really upset because he's going to have a lot of stomach problems. He's not. What's going to happen is, let me put this down for a moment. What's going to happen is a lot of the air that goes in initially will come straight back out through his sinuses, just like when you drink. Here, I have some tea in a big cup. Did you hear that? I slurped in a lot of air as I drank in my tea. All that air just naturally came back out through my sinuses. That is a really normal function of drinking and eating, and that's going to happen for your baby too. Any other air that does become trapped in the stomach will show you how to burp the baby in a moment, and it's going to be pretty amazing how quickly and easily the burps come. So we're going to let Bob have just that little bit of milk. And again, we're holding the bottle perpendicular to the baby. We're supporting the baby. I've got my poor injured finger here. You can see I'm trying to wrap it under the baby's arm here. But we're going to let Bob suck about 8 to 10 times, right? You don't have to count, but you want the baby to suck a bunch of times. And then what you're going to do is you're going to pull backwards slightly, not to yank the bottle out of the baby's mouth, but to just hint that you might be trying to pull the bottle out of the baby's mouth. And what this is going to do, the baby will feel the nipple starting to pull away from their mouth, and they will suck harder to recapture that nipple and pull it firmly back into their mouth. And I've dropped my bottle. And here we go to get it. So we're going to pull back ever so slightly on the bottle. We're going to let the baby recapture it. We're going to let Bob suck again 8 to 10 times-ish. And then again, we're going to pull back. So we're just going to keep doing that. We're going to let him suck, 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 suck. Pull back a little, recapture, and suck, 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 suck. If I pull back a little and I accidentally pop the nipple out of the baby's mouth, I'm going to start again by tickling Bob's lip, letting him capture the nipple, and then letting him pull it firmly into his mouth while just giving him a little bit of milk to pull out. He might sound like he's making a lot of noise when he eats. That's okay. Don't be afraid of that. And now we've been doing this for a little while. We might have been doing this for a good 10 minutes or so. So then what I want you to do, he's probably around halfway through what he wants to eat. So I'm going to put the bottle down for a second, and then I'm going to take my baby. And what I'm going to do is actually, I'm going to just give him a little tilt. I'm just going to give him a wee tilt back and forth. I might even rotate him around in a little burpee hula. And what's going to happen, what you'll find is all the little air bubbles that are in his tummy are going to consolidate, and they're going to hit where the esophagus comes up and exit his body. And you're going to get a nice, sometimes huge burp pretty easily. And in fact, you may find that the moment you bring the baby up and tilt them forward, the burp comes straight out. And I think that's kind of hilarious when they do that. Tiny, tiny babies, they burp really loud, and I find it's unexpected from such a tiny person. So we'll give Bob a little chance to have a burp. We might even give him a little cuddle and a pat. Just a reminder that McGill University a couple of years did a study where they looked at burping practices, and they found that practices that patted the baby on the back or the bottom, like firm patting, like this. This is not hard. I'm not whacking the baby, but I'm giving them a sort of firm pat. Had a tendency to increase the amount of spit up and amount of vomiting babies do. So we don't want your baby to lose all the food, especially if what's in this bottle is your precious breast milk. We don't want them to spit all of that out. So we can definitely explore different ways to help the gas out. And then what we're going to do is we're going to switch sides, just like we do with breastfeeding, right? When we breastfeed, we start on one side, we take a break and give the baby a pat or allow them to burp, and then we move to the second breast to give them the option. One of the things that this is doing is it's giving even stimulation to both sides of the baby's brain, both sides of the baby's eyes. So when the baby is looking this way, they're exercising those eyes. When they're looking this way, they're exercising the other eyes and the other side of their cortex. So what we want to do that because that's one of the things that breastfeeding does, right? Breastfeeding is not just about feeding the baby, but about activating all kinds of different kinds of stimulation and sensory experiences with the baby to help the baby's brain grow, which is so important. So again, we're going to start out with the baby sitting upright, gently held at the back of the neck and the jaw with an arm under or a finger under the arm for more support. We're going to offer them the bottle and tickle their lip in order to entice them to capture the nipple. We're going to let them capture the nipple. And when they do and pull it firmly into their mouth, we will tilt the bottle even perpendicular, just enough so that there's a little bit of milk in the nipple, but the nipple is not completely full. And then we're going to allow the baby to suck, 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 suck. And then we're going to give a little bit of backward pressure on the bottle, allowing the baby to exercise their mouth muscles and recapture that nipple really firmly within their mouth and suck again, repeating the process until the baby's finished. You will probably find that while the first feed may be good 5, 10, even longer minutes, the second side will be much shorter. And that experience is the same usually with breastfeeding as well. We want to offer the baby the feeding on the second side, but you will probably find at some point that the baby clamps their mouth shut, pushes that nipple out of their mouth, and then won't let it back in. Just like that. I always find that funny when babies do that. It's a great sort of instinct that they have. It's a great safety mechanism that they've got. But it's always kind of funny when they're so determined to prevent the nipple from going in their mouth. And when they do that, they're done. If it looks like they haven't eaten a lot of food, that's okay. They don't necessarily need to eat huge volumes. Remember, your baby's tummy is really small. And this like about the size of a medium-sized egg or an apricot, that's the size of their stomach ongoing for the first few months. Within the first week or two, their stomachs are a little smaller than that. So, keep in mind that they're not drinking 2 full ounces at every single feed. Sometimes they're only drinking 1.5 ounces, an ounce, a half ounce, and that's okay. They're going to fill their stomachs. When their stomachs are full, they will stop because they will be able to feel that they've gotten full. They'll be able to feel that they don't need any food anymore. They will stop themselves, and then they will naturally become hungry again in 1 hour to 3 hours, somewhere in that zone. Probably a lot sooner than 3 hours, although they may take a nice long sleep. If you're one of those parents who has a baby who does sleep for good long naps, that's That's lovely. And you are the envy of all your friends. And then if you're going to feed again with a bottle, you can do that again. Now, this is a feeding method. I'm going to put Bob down here. This is a feeding method that you can use at home that will help the baby not become frustrated when they go from this to the breast, and the breast has a much, like, it just requires more work to get the milk flowing, and that when the milk starts flowing, the milk is flowing a little slower than if you were to feed the bottle in this orientation. So this means it's a lot easier for the baby to be happy regardless of how they're getting fed. So they're not going to start preferring the bottle over the breast. That's what we want to try to prevent. If that is important to you, you're going to want to do this feeding style. We call it paced bottle feeding because we're slowing the pace down. We're pacing the whole feed over a slightly longer time frame, allowing the baby to eat slower, allowing for there to be less difference between the way babies eat, breast or bottle. You can show this to your partner if you want your partner to do an occasional feed, especially for those families who create an arrangement where maybe the feeding parent goes to bed, a little earlier, and the other partner stays up later and does a bottle feed with the baby, ensuring that the feeding partner the parent can get a really good solid sleep in before the duties of frequent waking starts. Or if you want to leave the house, maybe you want to go to your best friend's wedding, or you want to catch a movie and a dinner out, and I think all of those things they're super important for you to do to feel awesome as a person, not just a parent. And so you might want to teach maybe grandma or auntie or your friend how to use this bottle feeding style to help your baby who is mostly breastfed switch easily between bottles and breast. So thanks. I hope you found this interesting. I hope you find it helpful. If you try it and it works for you, or you have some thoughts on it, let us know. We would love to hear from you, hear your feedback about this feeding method. If you have tried it and this is just a refresher, let us know how it worked for you. Did you find that it made it easier to switch between breast and bottle? And if you'd like to sign up for our newsletter, I'm going to drop the link in the comments so that you can sign up for the newsletter. And on there, we give you like links to this week's episode. We give you a printable every week to help along with your journey as parents and through pregnancy. We also share there some very exclusive deals that we have for our agencies. So if you're in the Ottawa area, the Toronto area, or the Hamilton area, and you are looking for prenatal classes, birth doula, postpartum doula support, night nanny support, or any other service that our agencies may offer, then you want to be on this newsletter for sure, because every week we offer our readers a special gift, like a little deal that's only available to them. So thanks very much for spending your Wednesday at lunch with me. I very much appreciate it. And we'll see you again next week when Machiko comes back and Megan is going to do her actual pelvic physio appointment. You're not going to see any gory bits, but she's going to take you live into a real appointment. And I think that's going to be really cool. You don't want to miss it. So come on back next Wednesday at noon. Bye for now.